This is the Farm Monitor. For over 50 years, your source for agribusiness news and features from around the Southeast and across the country, focusing on one of the nation's top industries, agriculture. The Farm Monitor is produced by one of the largest general farm organizations, the Georgia Farm Bureau. Now here are your hosts, Ray DeLessio and Kenny Bergamy.
Well, hi there. So glad you could join us for a special edition of the Farm Monitor. And I say special because, of course, this month marks the one-year anniversary of Hurricane Michael carving a path through Georgia. So for this show, we felt it was important to revisit some of the stories we first brought you in the days and weeks after Hurricane Michael and show you the struggles that a lot of the producers are still dealing with a year later.
Yeah, to this day, remnants of Michael still scattered throughout South Georgia. A number of commodities suffering catastrophic losses. John Holcomb spoke to a pecan producer about the rebuilding process and why he feels it'll be nearly a decade before things return to the way they were before Michael. Also on the show, the Georgia timber industry weighs in on its rebuilding efforts. Despite what they call generational losses, they say there is nothing but optimism when looking ahead to the future.
Plus, you're also going to get to see our one-on-one conversation with Georgia Farm Bureau President Gerald Long. President Long discussing everything from how the city of Bainbridge came together after enduring heavy damage to the recovery efforts on the part of Georgia Farm Bureau. These stories and so much more starting right now on the Farm Monitor.
One could certainly say that Hurricane Michael left a lasting mark on Georgia's ag industry. The dollar figure in the billions. Pecan trees ripped from their roots, peanuts destroyed by Michael's pounding rains, and cotton scattered for miles. John Holcomb begins our coverage after spending time with producers who are literally still picking up the pieces 1 year later.
When you mention Hurricane Michael in southwest Georgia, more times than not, you'll get a look unlike any other. An indicator of that person having flashbacks of a day they wish they never had to live through. A day that when producers like Andy Bell woke up that morning, their world had been quite literally blown away.
One of the first things I did was go to the cotton fields to see how they looked, and they were, as we expected, they were horrible. I mean, we lost all of our cotton, and half of it was sprayed and ready to pick, and the other half was just about, could have been sprayed had it not been the hurricane coming, but we had an excellent crop, and it was all lost due to the storm.
Since that day, now more than a year ago, they've had to pick up the pieces and continue on. They decided to replant cotton again this year, which prompted me to ask why. Why would you plant cotton again after losing it all last year? But Isabel told me as we were checking out his field, that's all they can do, because that's what a farmer does.
We plant cotton every year. We buy crop insurance that protects us somewhat from a hurricane. It's about a 70% protection, as you know, crop insurance. So we just lose the other 30%. But we have some protection against a disaster like a hurricane or drought or whatever. But I guess we're just farmers, and we think it's going to be better the next year. And like I said, we have a good crop again this year if we can get it gathered without another hurricane.
Just a few miles down the road from Bell's farm in the town of Bainbridge, another victim of Hurricane Michael, Pecan Ridge Plantation.
Hurricane Michael devastated our farm. We lost about 30,000 trees, basically 650 acres. We lost our entire crop, and what's really bad is we basically don't have a crop this year due to all the stress from the hurricane last year that was put on our trees, and we're still losing trees.
They, like Bell and everyone else, have been busy cleaning up the past 12 months.
We just got cleaned up. It took us basically 6 months just to get our orchards where we could even mow, back in order, that we could even run equipment on them. And then we've been working on irrigation, we've been leveling, because the hurricane destroyed our floor too.
As you can see from the small trees everywhere, they've been busy replanting. But with high demand on tree seedlings, they can't get them fast enough.
There's so much demand on tree seedlings. We're about a year to 2 years out of just getting a tree. So we're still, in the long run, we're going to be about 9 years out, really, to get back to where we were in production. Amazingly,
even with so much chaos and destruction in the past year, they still have hope that everything will be all right.
We're moving forward. Hopefully we can get the price to go back up once hopefully the tariff situation will get solved. And I understand China's really wanting to come back in the market on pecans. They love Georgia pecans. So we think we've got a good opportunity going forward, but we've just got to stay in it, be real careful, dodge future storms coming to try to get us there.
Reporting in Climax for the Farm Monitor, I'm John Holcomb.
Meantime, while cotton and pecans might have received most of the attention, they weren't the only commodities in Georgia to be affected by Hurricane Michael, as timber also suffered more than $700 million worth of damage. However, as documented by Damon Jones, despite the devastation, there is still plenty of optimism surrounding the future of the industry.
I would say over 50% stands, we probably had 80% to 100% total destruction is what we had. So it was pretty devastating to see, and unless you were here, you've really never seen anything like the damage that we had.
What we saw with Hurricane Michael, we call it generational losses. I mean, it takes time to grow timber, and their land won't look the same probably for that owner's generation. It was changed. And I think a lot of people have come to the realization with this hurricane and some other storm events such as tornadoes that there's some risk in leaving that standing timber when it's mature, and once it's blown over and broken and the fibers in the wood are messed up, then the value of that wood goes down greatly, and just the prices that they get for it are severely impacted.
What we normally do is plant a stand and thin 1, 2, 3 times and then clear cut, age 25 to 35. And then you replant with the money that you had at the final harvest. Well, that's not here anymore. So that's your big issue, is there's no money for a lot of these landowners to replant.
There's a lot of cleanup going on. The state had a $20 million program there shortly after Hurricane Michael. It was for forest debris management. And we've processed about and paid about 25% of those contracts at this point. So there's still another 75% out there that are still working on their lands and still cleaning up.
Timber is a long-term investment, and we're going to plant here, and it'll be this winter, and it'll be 12 years, and we'll do a thinning. And then, so if you add all the acres that we lost up here, it's a big benefit to this region, the Georgia Reforestation Tax Credit. But overall, we can get this, we've got timber to sustain us, and then we can get a lot of this damaged acres replanted through professional forest management and some of the Georgia state tax credits and some cost share programs.
There's just a lot of optimism now from forest landowners in the area. Shortly after the hurricane, and understandably, landowners were very upset and were very pessimistic, I guess, about forestry. But that optimism has returned, and we all realize what a good investment forestry is and how important it is to Georgia's economy.
We've had 2 new mills built in this area in the last year from the ground up, sawmills. We've got one that's adding production at the end of the year. So the economy is really good, and the timber industry is really good.
The timber prices are back to somewhat normal. That salvage window has closed. Those trees have deteriorated. If they haven't been harvested, they've deteriorated and they're no longer useful, and the stumpage prices are back to normal.
It's probably a 3 to 5 year window, and then we'll have everything probably back to normal by then. And long range, it'll be good. It's just getting over the hump. This was a devastating hurricane, and unless you were there or still here, you just don't understand it. And it just takes time.
After the break, battered, bruised, beaten down, you name it, and the city of Bainbridge was feeling it after Hurricane Michael. But as a lifelong resident and business owner in the town, Georgia Farm Bureau President Gerald Long discusses the many ways in which the community came together and in some ways got even stronger.
If you're just tuning in, we're spending the majority of this show looking back and moving forward 1 year after Hurricane Michael. Like so many others, the University of Georgia wasted no time in quickly deploying its resources in the days and weeks following Michael. As documented in this next feature, UGA Extension spared no resources in providing storm victims the help that they needed.
This is some of the aftermath left by Hurricane Michael as crops, trees, and buildings were blown over by more than 100-mile-an-hour wind. One of the crops most affected was cotton, as this year's bumper yield was wiped away in a matter of hours. And the timing of the storm couldn't have been any worse.
Well, there's never a good time for a hurricane to arrive on your doorstep, but of all times for it to show up here on the very beginning edge of what was going to be a banner harvest season for us in the state of Georgia was particularly tough.
Year in and year out, Georgia is the nation's top producer of pecans, and it was expected to be more of the same this year, with a harvest predicted to exceed 110 million pounds. Not anymore.
Our poundage is going to be really affected.
The news stories, TV, local TV, do a pretty good job of covering sort of the social and family at the home impact. But in terms of an industry, and particularly agriculture in those counties, the way to connect that and get that information was really left up to Extension.
I talked to them before the rain, and we ended up making a spray on some peanuts to try to keep them. One more fungicide spray, and we called and asked what would they recommend, because I knew those peanuts were due to dig, but we knew the storm was coming. We asked them those kind of questions all the time.
So we really used agents and commodity-based specialists to gather the field numbers, both estimates and some that we had more precise measures in. We made sure when we put these numbers out that they were going to be on the conservative side, and there would be numbers that we could stand behind as an agency. And as we put together a 2-page document, the real goal was to have us all on one page together with the same set of numbers, because it was really important that we were all on the same page. The other impact to make the public aware of was, what does it look like? There's one thing to say the pecan industry lost so many $1 million. It's another thing to look at a 50-year-old pecan orchard and 90% of the trees are horizontal on the ground.
And it'll take us, leaning on people in Extension like Dr. Wells and the local Extension agents around here to help us look at that and make sure that we're not making emotional decisions out here, because this is still a business. Even though it is a family farm, it has to be treated like a business entity.
So as we looked at trying to share our story and tell the story of the impact, it's a combination. It's a combination of numbers, it's a combination of the visual impacts, and also the stories and the impact on people. And so as we package things together, that was really our goal, is to convey and touch on all three of those topics.
Yeah, they certainly do an excellent job, don't they? When asked his thoughts on the lessons learned from Hurricane Michael, Georgia Farm Bureau President Gerald Long responded saying, quote, "Take nothing for granted and live one day at a time." Like so many others, President Long, a lifetime resident of Bainbridge, Georgia, endured heavy property damage from Michael. But like everyone else, he vowed to rebuild both physically and spiritually. And as we found out on the 1-year anniversary of Michael hitting Georgia, he has done just that. So when you look around, if someone didn't know any better, you really wouldn't think a major storm came through here. I mean, you don't see much damage now, but obviously we know better. Take us back, Mr. Long, to those days following Hurricane Michael. I mean, just how bad was it? Set the scene for us.
Well, on October the 10th, that morning, I was in Macon. And I talked to the wife and to our son, Justin, and I said, I think I'll come home. I don't think it's going to be that bad. I think I'll come home, though. So I did, and by probably 3 o'clock, the wind really started picking up. By 7 o'clock on October the 10th that afternoon, it really started getting bad. And so 1 year ago this morning, when we woke up to leave the house at daybreak, we could go neither direction on the highway, because there was trees all on the highways and all.
Bainbridge was one of the areas heavily affected by the storm. Bainbridge, of course, the hometown of Georgia Farm Bureau President Gerald Long. Obviously, downtown Bainbridge, a lot of buildings, a lot of damage. But in the year, this town has really come together. What does it say about this community?
Well, this town has always been a real close-knit town, and it done a lot of damage to a lot of our historic buildings. A lot of the older houses has been here for many years. And so it had a very major impact, but you know, our local government really pulled together, the leadership, and remember, these families go way back for generations. So they pulled together, started the next day cleaning up, and they still is. It's not rebuilt yet because of that. A year later.
Right.
So it's been I guess it's a lot of good comes out of things like that by communities coming together and working together. It's been great.
You, as president of Georgia Farm Bureau, talk a little bit about how this organization came together and really reached out to people in need.
Well, immediately we saw that we needed to step up and help the farmers in some way. And that's when we started the Disaster Relief Fund. You know, we was able in a very short period of time to raise some $665,000. We went through application process, and within a month and a half to 2 months time, we've got the applications and we dispersed the money to the ones that applied for it. And every penny that was raised by us through the donors, and not just donors in Georgia, it was throughout the country that donated to this cause. Right. And every penny went back to the farmers themselves. Now, it made no one whole. There's no way we can make anyone whole, because out of that $665,000, the applications we got added up to $126 million damage. So that's just a small fraction, but that was our way of saying, we know you're hurting, we want to help whatever way we can to help rural Georgia. Yeah. And that's what we've done.
I appreciate your time. Thanks for having us down
here.
Ray. Thank you.
Thanks, Ray.
Great job, Ray, and thanks to President Long for taking time out of his busy schedule to share thoughts with us. Well, that wraps up our time looking back at what has transpired since Hurricane Michael, but the show isn't over. After the break, Ranger Nick checks in for his monthly feature. He's going to tell us how sustainability, UGA students, and tiny houses like this one all relate to one another. Stay tuned.
Finally this week, for someone with such a large personality, you got to wonder how the tiny house movement caught the attention of Ranger Nick.
Yeah, this month he shows us how students and faculty at UGA are also jumping on the so-called tiny house bandwagon.
Well, here I am back in Athens, Georgia, right off campus at UGA, and I'm standing in front of this beautiful barn where the Ranger Nick series originally started. We did our very first segment almost 6 years ago on owl boxes, and I want to show you a box today of another type, a tiny house box, and how University of Georgia students are involved in not only building this, but making decisions about this unit and how this is being used in agriculture all over Georgia. Let me introduce you to a friend who's inside. Come on. Oh, hey, Kim. Good to see you again. Everybody, Dr. Kim Scoba. She is a rural development specialist with a specialty in housing, and Kim has been intimately involved in getting this place built with students. Now, word on the street is students were heavily involved in getting this done. Dr. Scoba, how does that work with college students at UGA doing this? Nothing against them, but I couldn't do this. How do they do it?
Right, well, they really did build from the ground or trailer up, and so every piece of this house has been touched by a student, and so, but they didn't come in knowing really much of anything. Most of the students didn't have any skills, and so we started off pretty simple basic skills.
And how does this begin? Is this with balsa wood or note cards, or how did they learn to go from something small to this?
Right, well, we discovered after the first class, the first time we taught the class, that students really didn't have really much, if any, knowledge about tool use and even just sort of measuring and cutting. And so we developed a project building bluebird houses. And so we had all of the students build their own bluebird house. And we found that that project really gave them the skills to launch their ability to work on this house.
And probably put a feather in their cap, no pun intended, to be able to work in a team and think critically to do these kinds of things, from cutting wood to putting things together. Incredible stuff. What I think we need to do is I want to talk specifically about some of the features of this place, how students were involved in maybe putting things like this and the lights and other things in, and I want to introduce the folks at home to another friend of mine that was intimately involved in this as well. So let's go there next. So we learned what students have been involved with in terms of putting this tiny house together and the decisions that were made, but I want to introduce you to a gentleman that knows a thing or two about the special features of this place, and that happens to be David Berlie. David, good to see you.
Yeah, you too, Nick.
I appreciate you being out here with me today. David's got a passion for tiny houses, and so David, the beauty that's inside of this place right now, I'm looking at this beautiful wood and how this place looks. How did you all get this wood? What is this stuff?
So all the wood on the inside of the house came from trees that fell down in storms right before, or actually up a year or so before the house was built. And we picked hickory trees. There was a hickory tree that fell, and that's what makes up the floor. It's tongue and groove, variable width flooring. The walls, that you see the real pretty walls, is actually poplar, and that was from a poplar tree that fell down on the site. And it's the gap between, it's called nickel gap, tongue and groove, so it's kind of made to look specifically that way. And then the rafters up above are from a white oak tree that had fallen on the property.
Right here at the U Garden?
Yeah, all just right out here in this field, right outside from the tiny house.
We talk about reusing and repurposing. I mean, what a beautiful story there. Now, other features besides the beautiful wood, I'm thinking about the water here. Y'all are not hooked up with water right now?
Not currently, no.
Okay, but typically a tiny house would be plugged in to a campground or something, is that right, and get water that way?
Well, there's different ways. You know, the actual plumbing is pretty standard, but the water source, instead of it coming from a city water and through a copper pipe up to to your house, it basically, you plumb it so that you can hook a hose up to it. So they use like a sanitary hose. And if you were at like an RV park, you would hook up to the hose there. If you're on a farm, you hook up to a hose on your farm with a well or water source nearby.
Now, Kim, I'm looking at the wheels on the outside of this guy. This house is staying here. The other houses that have been built, where have they ended up? How have they benefited ag?
Yeah, so the first two houses that we built were in partnership with Georgia Organics. And so the two homes went to small organic farms, and they served the role as providing farm worker or farm manager housing or summer interns. So they filled that gap. Oftentimes, just as small towns, rural communities might not have housing available for everybody. That's a problem that small farms face too. And so these homes would fill that gap.
Incredible story. Kim, thanks so much for spending time with me today. I hope y'all are seeing the benefits for students and the public and for ag by a dwelling like this. Incredible. Y'all know what to do. When you're online watching other YouTube videos of the Ranger Nick segments, take a look around and see what I've got going on Facebook. Check me out there. And until next time, Kim, as we always say, I'm Ranger Nick, reminding you that enthusiasm is contagious. So pass it on. Y'all, thanks so much for joining us. We'll look forward to seeing you when we get back together again next month. See ya.
All right, thank you, Nick, and thank you for watching this very special edition of the Farm Monitor.
Take care, everybody. We'll see you again next week.
Be safe.